निरञ्जनं नित्यम् अनन्तरूपं भक्तानुकम्पाधृतविग्रहं वै ईशावतारं परमेशमीड्यं तं रामकृष्णं शिरसा नमामः. Namaste and welcome to the fifth talk on the series Mind Management Techniques, wherein we are trying to explore the inner dimension, the inner space of our being, our personality. Normally our mind is focused outwards, looking into the world through our five sense organs. We want to turn that searchlight from pointed outwards to pointed inwards and see what wonderful things are within us. Those who have done it in the past have said or come to the experience that within us is something so profound, so beautiful, that which is our real nature, which they called it by the word the self, the Atman, the absolute, the supreme being, Paramatman. It is of the nature of infinite existence. That means it is immortal, it was never born, it does not die. It is of the nature of infinite knowledge, where there is not an iota of ignorance, omniscient, and it is infinite bliss, without any semblance of any misery. It is the most beautiful, the most pure, all the wonderful adjectives that you can think if you put into a basket, that those would not be sufficient to describe the nature of what we really are. And then they say that this Atman is one that appears to be many, just like the one ocean appears to be so many waves. And out of this ocean of pure consciousness, the waves of universes, galaxies, solar systems, planets, and all living beings come out of them. Out of that ocean of consciousness is sustained by that consciousness, and ultimately all these names and forms resolve back into that consciousness. That supreme being they call the Brahman, the infinite, the vast, the limitless. And that is really what we are or where we come from. That is our home. Having moved away from that understanding and knowledge of ourselves as such, we have become embodied. And these layers of embodiments that are there. So on that Atman which is pure and perfect, there comes a sense of ego and I sense. On top of that is superimposed another layer, which is the mind with all its thoughts and ideas and memories and everything. On that is superimposed another layer, which is this physical body, which is subsequent layer of superimposition, the inner beauty, purity, light, knowledge of what we really are becomes diminished, becomes less and less and less. And in this physical body, there are these five sense organs through which we are able to perceive this external world, the eyes, the ears, and so on. And if we had another sense, maybe we would see this whole world in another way. If we have one less, for example, somebody is deaf or blind, then this world becomes less for that person. And imprisoned in this little body, functioning through the sense organs, we think this is all that there is. This is our identity. We are born when the body is born. We grow, the body grows, we think we grow, the body becomes old, we think we are becoming old. When the body dies, we die. This is called ignorance. We take the impermanent for the permanent. Everything around is changing, yet somehow we are trying to make that permanent, eternal, live forever, so to say. There is so much misery with 5% of happiness and 95% of misery in this world, if you analyze it. But we are trying to find happiness in these fleeting things. Even if you get it for a while, it disappears. This is as transitory as the sages say, if you drop a drop of water on a hot frying pan, it just sizzles and vaporizes. All enjoyments, everything in this world is as temporary as that. But somehow we have become so entangled and so limited and so ignorant that we don't have that big up picture. We Our own vision has become very limited. Just think about it. We make a big deal about this life of ours and ourselves. We were born, and then all the process from your birthdays and your education, your graduation, your jobs, your houses, and all those type of things, and then we somehow sooner or later everyone dies. Either you go to bed and you don't get up, or you have an accident, or you have a coronavirus, or whatever is there. Everyone has to go. But we make such a big deal about it because it's something very small that has become amplified into such a big significance or great importance. If we step back from this and look at how many lifetimes we have lived, suppose we assume that we have lived 100 lifetimes in the past. In each one of them, on average, say 70, 80 years, we were a child born in a certain country, went through all the same stages, made a big deal about that at that time, and passed away, and another one came. And today, when we look back, we are not even aware of them, and they don't matter. Nothing matters. This life also is nothing more than like a flash of lightning in the dark night of eternity. Time is infinite, and you have a flash of lightning. How long does it last? In that eternal existence that we are, eternal being, this human life is so insignificant. When we lose sight of that bigger picture, and the small things become very big, that's when the problems arise. We have lost our perspective and our balance. So now and then we need to retreat back and look at the bigger picture of what we really are. We are the ocean. Why we make a too big deal about this wave, so to say? So many lives have come and gone. This one also will come and go. What's the big deal? Unless we have achieved something for which we are being born again and again. Just being growing, going through an education system, living some happy life and going, there's no meaning and significance in the ultimate sense. And then you look about this space. Here I am, this is my being, my identity. I have identified myself with this body. I might extend that a little bit and relate it to the people in my family. Okay, I might extend that to my relatives, to my community, to the people of my country, maybe to the whole of humanity, or to the all living beings there on this planet. Just see how much we can expand it. Expansion is life, contraction is death. How we can just through a mental exercise, we can see what does expansion does to us. So, imagine you are sitting wherever you are. Look at yourself out from outside, objectively. And you're sitting down there, and imagine that you're going up in space. Just going up in space, and you see the house that you're sitting in. You're going higher, the neighborhood comes in view. You're going higher, maybe this Brisbane city comes in view. I go higher, I can see the whole of Australia, the New Zealand and Pacific Island countries come in. And then suddenly this whole world has become a blue ocean, blue ball in the space. I go higher and higher into space. The other planets come in, our solar system that merges into another just solar system in this galaxy, the Milky Way. Other Milky galaxies come in, and suddenly I find I am in this vast space ocean in which galaxies are bubbling in and out, arising and disappearing in that infinity of space. In that space I reside in absolute silence. All my little problems and jobs and struggles related to my life, that also has receded away into insignificance somewhere, just like this earth has receded away into a small speck of dust in the darkness somewhere. That is a bigger picture. Millions of universes arise and millions of universes disappear. Sri Ramakrishna says, in Bengal he says, Chida akashate dekhechi koti koti brahmando srishti hoy lay hoy. In that ocean of consciousness, I have seen millions of universes arising and disappearing, just like waves arise in the ocean and disappear. He said, I have seen this. I do not know what your books, scriptures say. Imagine that magnitude out of that experience, where when you rise your mind to that level of where samadhi is there, or at the borderline of it, you see universes arising and disappearing. We have this big universe we think that has come out of some big bang where we do not know where it has come, but it has up, and for so many billions of years. He says what we experience as billions of years, he sees in fractions of seconds, appearing and disappearing. Such is the vastness of that reality, that ocean of consciousness, and we are part of that consciousness. Having forgotten that nature, see our miserable plight, that we have become identified with this little body and all that identity and your biodata and the CV and everything that comes. And every day from morning to evening, we beat about our own drums and think as if the whole world revolves around us, and it will be, if we are not there, things will stop. Nothing stops. So this I and mine, the sense of I and the sense of mind with respect to this body, mind, and the things of outside world which we have attached ourselves, my house, my family, my job, my money, my property, all these two things, ami, amar, I and mine, that is Maya. That is the ignorance, and that is what keeps us tied to this world. Unless we are ready to disconnect ourselves from these limited identifications, this mind that we have will not be able to raise itself and soar into that spiritual consciousness. And that is why, even though some people find it difficult to understand, the moment we mention the word renunciation or tyaga, they panic. They feel it's a loss. Why should I? They don't want to hear about it. So today we will talk about why that is important, because Sri Ramakrishna says, if you are sincere about spiritual experience, then you cannot do away with this idea of renunciation. And today we'll see why it's not a negative thing, but it's a positive thing. It's our ignorance about renunciation that makes us afraid. Because we always renounce. Everyone is renouncing in one way or the other. You are happy to give away childhood for youth for much. You might start and get a small, beautiful bicycle and given to you as a birthday thing, and that is your most cherished possession. You would not share with anyone else until somebody comes and says, hey, if I give you a motorcycle, would you part away with the bicycle? You say, yes. Definitely, you take the bicycle, let me have the motorcycle. But you wouldn't share that motorcycle with somebody else because that is the most valued thing for you. But if somebody comes and says, I'm going to give you a car, and you says, yes, you can have the motorcycle, and so forth, you can give away your old car for a new car, for a plane. Why did we part away with things that were so important to us, so valuable to us? Because we got something that was better. So renunciation, you renounce the bicycle for the car and the car for the plane or whatever, because you found that what you are getting is more valuable than what you had. Now, if we, through the study of scriptures and introspection and reflection, or through kicks and blows in life, we begin to understand that all those things which we valued, which make a big deal about, really are transitory. They are not valuable. On the other hand, there are people who went within themselves, explored the inner mind, and came across something which was so profound, so beautiful. They tried to explain in the words because the mind even cannot reach there. So with help of some analogies and examples and this and that, they're trying to give us a hint that within us is something so profound, so beautiful, compared to which all these external things pale away into insignificance. So as we think about that more and more and form a stronger and clearer idea, you'll find that at some point you will be happy to drop away these smaller material things in the quest for the higher thing within you. And in some people, if they have been doing this in the previous lifetime, those samskaras are there. It might mean reading a book and just meeting somebody, and it will trigger that change, and suddenly you are happy to drop everything and run in that spiritual. Others, if they are not prepared and not ready for it, no matter how many instructions you give, how many satsangs you have, it will not have any impact. Everyone is in different grades in the school of spirituality, and one cannot be rushed through that. We can make the knowledge available to them. Those who are ready for it will be able to take it and do something with it. Our job is to broadcast and share that as much as possible, and see those who are sincere about it, how much we can, as fellow travelers towards the same journey, how we can help each other in that path. So with that idea, we're discussing the importance of renunciation. In the previous classes, I talked about how even though we might be very sincere spiritual aspirants, we're doing a japa and meditation and all those things very sincerely, yet you're not making much progress. The reason is we did not practice that detachment. Just like those group of young men who went for a party on a Friday night to Calcutta across the Ganga and then had a good time, maybe had too much to drink. When they came back at night and they got in the boat and started rowing, but when the sun rose in the morning, they found they were still at the same place because they did not untie the rope which was tying the boat to the land. So they did all the hard work, but they didn't make any progress. So that is why mentally or physically we have to renounce. Sri Ramakrishna says that's an indispensable requirement for spiritual progress. The monks have to renounce both physically and mentally. The householders have to renounce at least mentally. And he has taught them how. It doesn't mean that you become heartless and you don't take care of your loved ones and family members and all those things. You do all those things, you'll do even better with the right understanding of what renunciation is. And he gives a beautiful example how the housemaid who has come into and works in a house in Calcutta, she has a home somewhere in other state, and she's working there at this in the house of this rich landlord or master. She takes care of the family members, the children, the property and everything as if they were her own. But at the back of her mind, she always knows that they don't belong to her, they belong to the master. One fine day, he will ask her to leave and she'll have to go away. With that attitude, if we live in this world and deal with our wives and husbands and children and relatives as if they are our own, but really none of them are our own. They belong to the divine. We all have come to that same source. They belong to him. We are his trustees, not owners of. They don't belong to us. So you see, we'll still do our duties. You'll love the children because the divine dwells in them, or they belong to the Lord that you worship. Maybe you'll do it even better with much more love and dedication and care, because it has become a spiritual relationship now. So that's how Sri Ramakrishna teaches, even for householders who live in the world with all the responsibilities and duties, to be detached and discharge your duties. At any moment, be ready to drop everything and hurry home. And our home is the spiritual source or foundation from where all of us have come. Now, we are talking about this idea of renunciation. And that's very important. And unless you do that part, you'll find that your progress in things might not be all that very good. It's just like if you're on the ground floor and this is a 7-story building, and somebody from the top 7th floor says, "Come up here. It's a beautiful view. We can see so far away trees and plants and lakes and all those things." And you listen from here and say, "Can you report that to me, please? Explain it from there." So when he's shouting from there, that's what we get as the scriptures. Okay, somebody is sitting up there having the experience, trying to explain as much as possible with all the adjectives and things, and this guy on the ground floor is still waiting. "Can you tell me a little bit more and more and more?" And then he cooks up his own story and picture in his mind. He becomes a philosopher, but it hasn't come into his mind that I should have that experience myself. Now, if another person who says, "That sounds very, very interesting, I would like to have that experience myself. You telling me from there will not help. I'm going to make an effort to climb up there." So he said, "Yes, come over. And I'll tell you there are various ways to come. You can come up the steps. You can get into the elevator. So many means are there. You avail one of them But one of the things that all of you have to do is you have to leave that ground floor. You can't be on the ground floor and up here simultaneously. So, renunciation is giving up of the microcosm for the macrocosm, something smaller for something bigger. And how do you get that understanding? That's where the scriptures and satsang, holy company, and this type of discourses come. We keep on thinking and contemplating and analyzing. At some point, those beautiful, wonderful spiritual ideas and samskaras that are in our mind will coalesce together and form into a powerful force, and suddenly you will be making some decisions where you say this is what the world is. No matter how beautiful it appears, it's insignificant compared to the beauty that's within me. The moon is so beautiful, but when the sun rises, the moon disappears. Just like that, when the sun of knowledge rises, then the darkness and everything disappears, and we see beautiful colors and shapes. That is, we can give some example of analogy, what that quality of that experience could be. Anyway, the more we think about it, the more we discuss, the more we contemplate, the compass of the mind begins to shift towards that north, and we get our sense of direction and purpose. The scriptures are the maps, and the spiritual teachings, the supreme reality that's within us, is the north. The mind is the needle of the compass. And if it is not pointed to the proper north, we get lost in this mind. So that's why it's important to understand the mind itself. Manasaiva aptavyam. By this mind alone, this truth has to be realized. So that's why we have taken this subject of understanding the mind and how to manage this mind so that it can help us in this life to move towards our spiritual goal. We were exploring this mental space. So you have got these three spaces, this physical space, Maha Akasha. The mental space is called Chit Akasha, and finer than that is the spiritual or space of consciousness, Chid, C-H-I-D, Chid Akasha. Normally we are used to visualizing things in space like one above the other, but it's not really above the other, it is one within the other. One is gross, the other one is finer, the other one is finest. But in the same space, just like we use the example of a TV, the electromagnetic spectrum, so to say, in which all these various types of signals and waves are there. You don't have to move your radio up and down to catch different stations. You just have to tune to different frequencies. So when a person goes into samadhi through different stages, as his mind ascends to this finer and finer or higher and higher frequencies, so to say, then the physical world disappears and a spiritual world appears, and heavens and things are there. You will see gods and goddesses all around. Then if you go higher, they will disappear, and ultimately all names and forms will disappear into that nameless and formless ocean of consciousness, which is here and now. Which is here and now. If there was a yogi or somebody like Sri Ramakrishna who could go into samadhi at any time and he would merge himself, he doesn't disappear physically. His body is there, but his mind goes through different levels and he says, I merged myself into the supreme reality in Brahman and then I came down there. So he has that special capacity through special training. He could move the tuning of his mind from this gross world to the mental world into a spiritual, and then he could come back. That spiritual power is with a special category of beings called Ishwar Kotis, who are born for the purpose of disseminating spiritual knowledge. What is our position? We are stuck in one level and we are trying so hard to go to another level, and through meditation and all that, and when we're not moving because so many things are holding us down, just like that hot air balloon example I had given. You are putting in all the hot air, putting on the burners on, it's inflated and everything, but it's not lifting because the ropes that were holding it to the ground, they are not untied, disconnected. So, it is indispensable to practice renunciation. And if you can accept that, but in a positive way, that I'll get something more than what this world is, something higher, then I would be happy to give that, something lower in exchange for something higher. So this mind, if it is pointed downwards into the material world, then that world becomes real to us and it will hanker for it, it will make an effort. So in the Bhagavad Gita, Sri Krishna says, we have to be very, very careful in which direction our mind is oriented to. And he explains the psychology of how the mind functions. There are two options are there. One, either to treat this world to be the be and all of everything, and therefore you'll get up in the morning and your whole plan from life, from childhood, going to primary school, secondary school, getting a degree, getting a job, and then working for a house or car and having a family, that would be the master plan. And as you keep on ticking the boxes which the society has made for us, we say such and such a person is so successful, and then old age comes and we die. Now, where we come from, where do we go, why were we here, all those questions were never asked. It's not taught in our education system. People don't know about it. It's not part of the education system, the modern so-called education system. It was there in the old education system, where young people would go and learn this, what was called aparavidya and paravidya. Aparavidya was to do with any profession or the material sciences by which one could earn a livelihood. Paravidya was to do with this subject of Atman, Brahman, who am I? Where do I come from? Where do I go? What's the meaning and purpose of life? Both knowledge was given to young people until the age, during this period of 25 years called the Brahmacharya, or student life. And then they decided what to do with their life. If the desire for enjoyment was very strong, then they would get married and go through that path. And if it was the desire for enjoyment was not so strong and the desire for spiritual realization was very strong, then they could jump from the first stage to the fourth state of sannyasa. Apparently in this age, those things, that knowledge is not so easily available. But that was given thousands of years ago in our Indian tradition, culture. It was there. So the mind can be pointed to the material world. It's called pravritti, in which it thinks these things are the sources of happiness, and these are the things that I should strive for. Or the path of nivritti, understanding that whatever the world, what I need from the world is some basic food, clothing and shelter, nothing more than that. But the real purpose of life is to understand and realize who we are, and what is taught to us that we are something like the ocean. Why should we are stuck to this little body and mind, which is a little insignificant wave? So when the desire comes, then the grip of the mind for these material things begins to loosen, and the attachment or attraction for the spiritual things becomes to grow more. Jagater prati vairagya, Ishwarer prati anurag. Dispassion towards the things of this world, and a attraction and a hankering and a desire for some spiritual thing. That little change begins to happen. When that begins to happen, that really is the starting of spiritual life. That is really the starting of spiritual life, where we begin to make a U-turn. That making that U-turn has to come through some enlightenment about the nature of the world. And what's the nature of the world? It is looking like something, it's there so attractive and good and beautiful and permanent, but really it is not so. So it is like somebody gets in his car and is driving out into the desert, and he sees it's a hot day. He sees a beautiful lake out there, a lot of nice trees with shade and water, and he thinks, let me go out there and have a nice swim and dip. So he's driving out there. He keeps on driving. After 1 hour, he still sees the lake is still appearing to be out there. He goes for another 2 hours, 3 hours, and then it clicks to him. There is actually no lake there. It's only a mirage. There are no trees and no water there. It's a mirage. The moment that understanding and that realization flashes in his mind, knowledge comes there, He cannot be still driving with that same passion and determination because he understands that it is not there. So, through many lifetimes, when we come into this world thinking the world is going to give me happiness, the world is going to give me knowledge, and here I can live forever, so to say, if I could, type of thing. But again and again, each life is trying to teach us that wonderful lesson that whatever we are seeking for is good. We can't give up this search for immortality, to live forever. We can't give up this search for knowledge, infinite knowledge. That is our divine birthright. Somehow it is in our DNA. We can't give up this quest for happiness or knowledge or joy. It is somewhere in there. But what is wrong is our approach to this is wrong. We are seeking it in things where it is not. You get a flash of it, but it disappears in no time. So, after many, many lifetimes and a lot of experiences, the soul becomes wiser. And at some point, he says, somewhere deep within its mind, that understanding is there that I'm still going to pursue this, but now I'm a wise old soul, so to say, born 100 times or 500 times, and each time I tried to do the same thing in different ways, and the conclusion was always the same. Death came and took everything away from me, and I was none the wiser. But now, in this life, I'm going to pursue my quest for that infinite knowledge, happiness, and bliss, but not out there within me. This entity, infinite existence, infinite knowledge, infinite bliss, is in Vedanta called Akhand Satchit Ananda. That is our definition of God. We are seeking for God, but seeking in the wrong place. When we make that U-turn, just like this person driving it out into the ocean, into the desert, is discovers that the lake really is not there, then what can he do? He cannot keep on driving out into the ocean, into the desert. He'll have to turn around, go back. But it's not so easy to make a U-turn because on the roadside is written there, no U-turn. He has to slow down. He has to look for an opportunity wherever this roundabout or something comes, and then he has to make that U-turn. So you'll find that, yes, after listening to these talks, you might understand it's not there, but your life will not permit you to make that U-turn because you have families and responsibilities and duties. Slow down. Don't drive at that reckless 100 kilometers an hour. Slow down and keep an opportunity to make the U-turn. That U-turn that we make, that is the beginning, that's called Vairagya, dispassion for the outside world. And then the inward journey starts. And if you have gone out very far, you have to drive back very equal distance back. So, this is the story of how the Atman, the Supreme Consciousness, becomes embodied through these layers of an ego and a mind and a body, and attaches itself to various things in this world, thinking that this is the happy place, I should stay here, I should come back again, maybe I should come back without all the miseries, all the good things I'll have, without all the sorrows. So he contemplates, if such a place is there, we'll call it heaven. And I want to come back here, have still the enjoyments minus the sufferings. And he wants to be born in that type of thing. Yes, there are such places out there. We can stay there as long as our good karma allows us. And when the results of the good karma finishes, we also have to depart from that heaven region or whatever and be born again into this world. So this is what is happening here. And repeatedly we get entangled into this. Now, this mind can be educated and systematically trained. Just like we go through a school system where some proper education is given. Otherwise, things that we can learn on our own from a lot of experience over a long time can be given to us in a short period through some systematic training, which is called our education system. We benefit from the knowledge that has been accumulated by people who have worked so hard, the scientists and the researchers and the discoverers, and who have put those things in a systematic way through various subjects and through different levels. And we have a system where people who have that knowledge and expertise will help us acquire that knowledge. That's what's called education system. Likewise, in the spiritual field, there are spiritual scientists or researchers, the rishis, who experimented in this art of exploring the inner space, and they too have come across in a very scientific way the facts related to the spiritual domain, and that is recorded in our scriptures. And they also say that, look, if you do these exercises, you for yourselves will be able to experience what we are talking about. Don't just believe us, do the experiment yourself. Religion is not believing in certain ideas and thoughts and subscribing to some faith and saying, I belong to this organization or that particular religion, or I believe in this prophet, or I swear by that book. Nothing will help us. Self-realization is religion. Religion is experiencing those things yourself. So, once we understand that, then we don't say that, let me study all the scriptures and memorize all the map and then I will start the journey. No. I have a fairly good idea. I've got a map and a compass. I'll start. The rest of the things will keep on coming to me. And there are many people traveling in that journey, and we can exchange notes. There are some ahead, some behind, this way, that way, but we are going in the right direction, and ultimately we start. So spiritual discipline should not wait for us before we understand everything and then we'll start. Start wherever you are, other things will keep on coming. It is the law of nature that where the demand is there, the supply will also come. So this outgoing tendency of the mind called pravritti has to be reined in, checked in. The horses have to be pulled back, so to say, by this discriminating intellect, which is the buddhi. And then the chariot has to be given turn around and we go towards the spiritual aspect of our being. That is the path of nivritti. The mind itself is our best friend or our worst enemy. When it goes down and down and down, it becomes deprived of that inner joy, inner knowledge, inner power. It becomes weaker and weaker and weaker. And when it goes up and up and up, it gets empowered, nourished by that inner power that is there. And when that nourishment is there, then you feel this inner strength and power and glory and good, and that mind is then lifted up. So we have to be very, very vigilant and alert at all times in which direction the mind is going. Okay, and no one is there watching for us. We have to be alert on ourselves. Eternal vigilance is the price of liberty. That is the motto of the Americans. Liberty means freedom. Vigilance means alertness, watchfulness, so that anyone is invading into is about to take our freedom, we will protect against that. The same thing applies in the spiritual field also. Eternal vigilance is the price of liberty. Spiritual freedom, spiritual liberty, if we want, we have to be very, very vigilant about our thoughts, our words, our deeds, and make sure that it's not going in the wrong direction in the external material world. So, who is going to control that? That was the challenge. Who is going to help? And to help to control the mind. We said there is a faculty within us, beyond the mind, which we call the buddhi, which is even finer than the mind. So, in the analogy about this chariot and the horses are the senses, the mind is the rope, the charioteer who is holding the ropes is the buddhi. And if that buddhi is awakened, you have got a best friend who can guide you. If the buddhi is not so awakened, is dozing off or too drunk, or is just the ropes are let loose, then the horses are having a field day, which is the story with most people. And they think we are free. Actually, the horses are free. And they think they are going for a ride. Actually, they are being taken for a ride. So that is a story. Sometimes in ignorance, that's how we perceive things. So how do we awaken this buddhi within us? Meditation is a technique by which we empower or work on the awakening of that buddhi, the watchman. So I had talked about there are two aspects of the mind which we all practice, apply. One is the active mind and the other one is the observer mind. I am talking to you. I've got some ideas and some thoughts in my mind. I'm trying to communicate that to you. What am I doing? I'm trying to encode them using certain words and phrases and sentences and analogies and pictures and all that. And I'm trying to transmit that to you over this internet or wherever you are. If you're listening with concentration and attention and you're following the flow of the ideas that are there in your own mind, you are constructing those pictures and ideas. And if this encoding and decoding is happening in a proper way, then this knowledge, hopefully that's what's in my mind, is getting transferred into your own mind. That's what communication is all about. Now, while I'm doing this as an active mind, there's a part of my mind watching what I'm doing. What words I'm using, what expressions I'm using, have I explained that sufficiently? Should I dwell that on more? And that is the observer mind which is guiding me. So you'll find that in everyone, these two minds are there. In some people, the observer mind is very weak, untrained, because they never exercised to train it. In others, it is very sharp. When you say, this is a very, what's the word? Buddhiman. This observer mind is the buddhi. And the buddhi is strong, we say the buddhiman person. Okay. Where that person is having a very clear idea of the inner workings of the mind. What types of thoughts are coming? What's the quality of thoughts? Which ones he should express? What he should not say? And you'll find that in those people where this power of discrimination, that internal alertness, the internal watchfulness is very sharp, they are very good in the quality of decision making, what they say, how much say, up to the point. Others are there, it's just going on without any meaning, any control. He might be speaking for half an hour and you say, what was he speaking about? People are there. There's a story, two boys were talking. One of them, he said, hey, you see, my mother, she talks so much, You give her any topic and she can talk for 1 hour on that. The other boy said, that's nothing. My mother can talk on any topic, talk for 1 hour without any topic. So some people can just talk, but there's no substance is there. When this buddhi awakens, then we become very, very good in whatever we do. In our worldly life, whatever we do. And that's our best friend that we have to awaken. How do we do that? Meditation and japa are the spiritual disciplines by which we exercise those powers. Just like we have got so many muscles in the body, but if you don't exercise them, they never show up and you do not know they were there. But if a person goes regularly to the gym, and after some time those muscles begin to pop up and they're all over his body. So many muscles are there. Likewise, there are mental muscles, so to say, within our body. And if we exercise them, they become very strong. And there's no end to how much we can make them stronger. So, during meditation, we set up, during meditation, we try to awaken that buddhi, so to say. Okay. And the idea is that we want to increase the power of internal observation. Normally, we are seeing things outside. The senses are our instruments of perception, and the mind is the passiva. Then you say, I see these things. Now, if we take one step back and we say, we are going to perceive the thoughts in our mind, we are different from the mind, then this buddhi is the instrument through which we are going to control that. And I am the passiva. Because we are not looking at things outside, we are beginning to think inside. So the method to do is to use the psychology or understand how the mind is constituted. The mind is constituted by having what is called a name and a form to everything around. So you see a little child is constantly going and asking the parents, what is this, what is that? He sees a form, he wants to put a label to it. Depending on which part of the world and what mother tongue is there, there's a chair, this is a table, this is a cup, this is milk, this is food and all those type of things. So what is happening in the child? He is filing away the images that he is perceiving through his eyes or words he He's hearing through the ears and he's linking to a word that is there. And the initial communication is just like that. He doesn't say, I want food. He says just food, chair, sleep, like that. And that is enough to communicate to the parents. But this connection between a name and a form is inseparable. That's how our mind is constituted. Nama, Rupa, name and form. And in our mind, we are constantly bombarded with thousands of, God knows more than that maybe, thoughts that are constantly coming and going. Maybe we are exposed to that. We are sitting somewhere, seeing things happening, hearing things that are happening, tasting things all there. Or we might just close our eyes and sit down in a place where there's no external stimulation, but still this from within this thoughts are bubbling from somewhere, from our subconscious, they're coming to the conscious. Anyway, it's like a lake that is very, very turbulent. A lot of wind is there and so many ripples and waves and everything is there. And when it's very, very much disturbed, then you don't see what's at the bottom of the lake. Now imagine you could make this like the mirror lakes, very smooth, no wind, no waves, no ripples, and you can see dive right down at the bottom what is there. So the calmer the mind is, the more the inner light will flow through. Every effort should be made towards keeping ourselves calm and calm. When the mind gets too much agitated by things happening around, whether they are relevant or not to us, and if we are not very discriminating what's happening in all parts of the world and it's available to us through the TV and internet and all those things, nothing to do with us, no importance, but constantly we want the stimulation, then what we are doing is lashing our mind to these hundreds of useless waves, and then we say, wonder why we are like this. But another person says, they are irrelevant to me. I don't need to get too much involved in that. I'm going to keep my mind engaged, make them keep calm. That person is not so much disturbed. A very disturbed state of mind is like anger. Suddenly a big tidal wave appears in your mind and it just sweeps away with all your thoughts. You lose proportion of who you are, whom you're talking to, what we say and all those things like that, and do things which we might regret. But at that time, suddenly there was a tremendous concentration of energy, mental energy, into this negative emotion called anger. Likewise, other harmful mental states are there: anger, hatred, lust, greed, jealousy, and all those things, which saps away the internal vitality of the mind, and it does harm to us also. These are called the 6 enemies in the spiritual path, which have to be shunned because they are spiritually harmful to us. They make the mind lose its energy and create a lot of disturbance in there. So where we live, with whom we work, and all that type of environment is to be selected for those people who are very, very serious. Now, this internal, we're talking about this Nama and Rupa. There are thousands of waves constantly coming into us. In our conscious way, we can cut ourselves from the external stimulations by going into a very quiet place, a retreat, or some people might go even to a cave or in the Himalayas just to disconnect themselves from the outside world. Then they have to work on the inner world, where all the samskaras and thoughts that have been lying in the subconscious mind, they are beginning to come to the surface and give expression. So there are 5 categories of thoughts or states of mind. Yesterday we touched a little bit, today we go. And we'll just very quickly go over that and try to say which one is preferable or desirable for our spiritual growth, which are not. The first one is called the restless mind, Shiptamana. Very, very restless. You'll find such people, their mind is very, very restless. They're talking incoherently, they're doing things, they're sitting down, hand is shaking, this and that. That is an expression of how much restlessness is there. It's a restlessness that is in a tamasic way. Okay, and such a mind is not conducive for spiritual disciplines. Then there's another type of mind called the stupefied mind, or engrossed mind. Okay, it's mudha. Tamas is there. It gets engrossed in something and it can't get. So they're very passionate about some other. They're madly constantly trying to think about money or some person or something like that, and they're so engrossed in it that they can't get out of it. Sometimes the mind falls into that type of loop, and you are sucked into it like a whirlpool, and it'll drown you in that type of thing. That is not a very good state of mind for meditation or spiritual contemplation. The third one is called Vikshipta Mana, which is a distracted mind. The fourth is called Ekagramana, one-pointed mind. And the fifth thing is called Niruddha, which is the arrested mind. So, this Vikshipta Mana is where most spiritual aspirants are in. What do they have? What's the characteristic of that mind? That mind will have periods of concentration and then distraction. So such a person can concentrate his mind on something for a while, and then suddenly he will lose that concentration, it will go other places, but he can bring it back again. So the difference between one person is what's the duration of concentration and what's the duration of distraction in there. Some people will have a greater degree of concentration with small distractions, others will have smaller degree of concentration with bigger distractions. But anyway, there is some degree of concentration is there. And that mind is conducive for spiritual contemplation. And through spiritual practice, we can take that mind and increase its level of concentration where it is totally occupied or concentrated on one object of concentration. That fourth mind is called the Ekagramana, one-pointed mind. And that is the mind we want to cultivate through meditation, and that is the mind that's going to take us and penetrate through the various layers of itself and take us to that higher consciousness. And when all the thought waves are arrested, yogas chitta vritti nirodha. Chitta means the mind stuff, vritti means the waves, nirodha means total cessation. No ripples on the lake of the mind. Then what does the mind see? Because it was always busy trying to see the thoughts. Now there are no thoughts to see anymore, no things out there. Then it suddenly becomes aware of itself. I am that consciousness. Okay, and that hits him. I am that supreme being in which this universe has come and go. Wow. And when they compare the two, this world is trivial, significant, and then it abides in its own glory. That is called liberation, that is called self-realization, that's called God realization, that's called nirvana. Various subjects are given. But that is within us. We have moved away from that area of peace and beauty and purity and got entangled with all these thoughts of the mind and then entangled with things of the world, and there's no end of entanglements. One body is enough, and we want to have many bodies around us, you see. And then one life is enough. But see, in ignorance, this is what happens. We take the impure for the pure. The body is not very beautiful. It's only outside, it's all nice cosmetic and color and all those things are there. Inside, Sri Ramakrishna says, there's a framework of bones with flesh and this and that. Not so nice. But how many people discriminate like that? We take the impermanent for the permanent. Everything is changing. The world is Jagat, but we think we are going to be here forever, and I want to live forever, and I want to have this various ways that I ensure my living in this world where the 3 meals through an industry called agriculture, medicines and vaccines and bypasses and kidney transplants and dialysis and all this to make this body live. How much time and energy goes in there? Because we think that this is the real thing and let's keep it. While the truth is totally different. This is what is called ignorance. Ignorance of our spiritual nature is not there, and therefore we think that this is real, and whatever we consider to be real, we respond to that. Okay, that is another interesting topic there. So, we discussed a little bit today about the spiritual ideal, what we are, and why the same mind has to be turned around from its outgoing tendencies and propensities and engagements. Going out, prevented to go out to the desert where there is no oasis, and that will come through an experience and a realization. Then we turn around inwards in quest of something which is our own divine birthright. Whether we do it in this lifetime or 100 lifetimes hereafter, still we'll have to do that. You decide, And everyone has to. The wise person says, what's the point of getting knocked around this universe for 100 lifetimes? If that is the goal, let me drop everything and get it done with. So, such a strong willpower, if it is there, that person will be able to do. Others will say, okay, not very sure what is there. A bird in the bush is better than, in hand is better than two in the bush or something like that. So they try to have a little bit of this and a little bit of that also. Okay, so they want to have all the enjoyments of the world and a little bit of God, religion, temple, puja, festival, that is there. So it depends on how we have been able to train and educate ourselves. Okay, how we perceive the spiritual varieties. Has it caught us by the throat, so to say, and is demanding some action in this life? If that happens, then you'll see a definite change in the spiritual pursuit. And then we try to understand the constitution of the mind, that everything is composed of names and forms, and that these 5 states of mind are there. One is the extremely restless one, not very good. The infatuated, engrossed one in the material world, not very good. The distracted one, vikshiptamana, that is fine. Okay, we can do something with that. And we can train that systematically through meditation to take it to the next level of ekagramana, one-pointed mind. And that then goes into what is called the niruddhamana, which is the one where there's no thought waves. And then in that state, we simply understand or recognize ourselves, what we are. It's not that there is some Atman outside there that will enter into us. It's not that there's some God out there that will enter into us. We are that Atman, we are that God here and now. The problem is we are not aware of our spiritual nature. Spiritual life is trying to give up all these interactions and engagements and engrossments with this external material things and internal mental states, so that we can experience ourselves as what we are. And in that process, how we can use this process of meditation towards strengthening that one-pointedness of mind. That is why when we learn that process of meditation, what we do, we sit down quietly, no physical disturbance. We use the breathing so that there's some calmness of mind. We pray for the welfare of everyone, even for those who are being a little bit of problem to us. The moment you pray, you'll find that your own mental reaction to those thoughts will also calm down. They don't touch you, affect you. Then you withdraw the mind from the outside world, turning around. And where do we focus it? In the center of the heart. Whom do we focus onto? Onto one thing. What's the nature of that thing? That is the source of infinite knowledge, beauty, purity, and all those things. The technique is there. We're trying to understand why we should try to make that one-pointed. Why can't we today say we want to meditate on Christ, tomorrow I want on Shiva, then Durga Puja or Ram Navami or Janmashtami? Then that defeats the whole purpose of that one-pointedness. So one name and one form. We're trying to understand the whole psychology of it. This is very, very interesting, and we will take this topic in the next Sunday's class about creating and working on the one-pointed mind, and how the spiritual disciplines of meditation and repetition of the mantra, one word, one form, help us to strengthen this capacity of the mind towards this one-pointedness. Until then, whatever meditation we have been teaching you, please practice that. 1 ounce of practice is more than 1 ton of theory, as they say. Try to increase the duration of that meditation, 10 minutes to 15 minutes, 20 minutes. Do it with great sincerity and regularity. And as the quality of your own mind becomes purer, then these spiritual instructions, so whatever we read in the scriptures, they themselves will reveal their true nature. And then you have a compass and you have a map and you can work on that journey. It's our own journey. No one can work with us, but we can help each other, share whatever knowledge we have. Until then, until next Sunday, keep the spiritual practices, and we'll see you next Sunday at the same time. Om Asato Ma Sadgamaya Tamaso Ma Jyotirgamaya Mrityorma Amritam Gamaya. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Tat Sat. Sri Ramakrishna Arpanamastu.